Hello everyone, it's Maha. Thank you so much for being with me once again on my channel. I am really excited about this video because I've been wanting to make this video for a long time on my channel and share this information with you. I'm going to be talking about how to balance the elements in your birth chart. And this is a very simple and easy technique that anybody can learn. You don't have to know anything really about astrology. You just have to have your birth chart. And you can, with this technique, I feel you can really glean some deep insights into your own self. It's a basic technique that astrologers use to sense the temperament of the individual. And ever since I learned this technique when I was first learning astrology, I was just so excited to use it, and I've been finding it really practical, really helpful, both for myself and working with my clients. So I wanted to share this technique with you. I'm going to talk about a little bit, just give a little intro about why it's important to balance the elements in the chart. And then we're going to be looking at how to actually find the elements in the chart and what's missing. I will show you how to do that very briefly, quickly. Like I said, it's really easy. And I'm also going to talk later about how to balance the elements and how to bring them to yourself and the different ways that you can do that. So you might want to watch this video just right now and listen, or you might want to actually grab your chart and do this with me. And if you don't have a copy of your chart, I'm going to just share a link down below where you can get a copy of your chart. So you can pause the video and do this with me. Or you can just skip through the part where I talk about the elements. You might just want to hear about the elements a little bit. Okay, so why is it important to balance the elements in your chart? Now, first of all, when we say balancing, we do not mean changing yourself. It's not about changing yourself, because I personally believe that you are exactly who you're supposed to be. So it's more about bringing awareness, becoming aware of the elements, the energy and dynamic of the elements happening within us, and then to consciously bring that which is missing or lacking into us, into our own energy. Because when we are not conscious of what's missing, we might overcompensate in the other elements which we have an abundance of. Or what we can sometimes do is draw in people into our lives that will play out those elements that we're missing in ourselves for us. So they will do the work for us. Meaning that if we are missing the element of water in our charts, we might be attracted to partners who have an abundance of water in their charts. And of course, there is nothing wrong with that. That is what we do naturally. We're always unconsciously drawn to that which we are missing in ourselves. And there is nothing wrong with this. But if we are conscious and aware of ourselves, our deepest self, then we can bring those to ourselves consciously. And in that way, we can work with our own energies. We can see our own shadows. We can see it's about more than anything else about self-awareness. And astrology to me is hugely valuable for awareness and self-awareness. So when you are lacking an element, it doesn't mean you don't have that element at all. We all have Leo in our charts. We all have Cancer in our charts. Somewhere in the chart, we all have one of the signs, one of the elements. And also, if you are, for example, lacking in water, or if you're missing water, it doesn't mean that you're not an emotional person. In fact, sometimes it can be even the opposite. Sometimes it can seem the opposite, because the element has to express itself somehow. But it might manifest in different ways. So for example, if let's just take the element of earth, for example. So if you are missing earth, what might happen is that you might find that you have in your life You might have problems with finances. You might have reoccurring health issues. You might have a hard time maybe manifesting things, because the earth, the element of earth, is about structure and giving form to things. So you might have a hard time really manifesting what you want in your life. You might have issues surrounding food, for example. Those are just some examples, some of the ways that it might actually manifest in life. So you can just have a little think for yourself after you do this exercise. I feel that you will find that it is quite helpful, and it can actually be really practical. And this video is part of my Astrology for Pagan series, which I started a while ago, and I haven't really done a lot in this series, but it's an ongoing series, and I will be doing more as I go along my channel. I always have ideas. I have an idea for astrological aromatherapy, which will also be added to this series. And again, as I've said this before in my other videos, you can find my videos in their own specific playlists by the different categories. So let's get started in looking at your birth chart. So if you don't have a copy of your birth chart, again, you can go to the link down below. There are other links, but this is the one that I like to use. So get a copy of your chart, and let's begin by looking at it. I'm going to be showing you an example chart right here. So all you need to really know is just the glyphs of the signs and the planets, which you can also just Google really quickly if you're not familiar with it. So in this example here, we have you can see a cluster of planets to the right, the sort of bottom right side, and we're going to be counting planets in specific elements. So we're just on a piece of paper, you can note down how many planets and give them 1 point, but you're going to be giving 2 points to the sun and 2 points to the moon. We're not going to include the angles, but I do consider the ascendant, not as a planet, not as a point. I don't give it a point, but I do consider the ascendant. I'm going to talk about that, because the ascendant is a really big part of the personality, right? So we have the sun, so that's 2 points. We have Mars, Mercury, and Neptune. We have 4 planets in Sagittarius, so that's a fire sign. So we have 2 for Sun, 3 with Mars, 4 with Mercury, 5 with Neptune, 5 points right there for fire. We also have Saturn over there in the sign of Leo, fixed fire sign. So that adds another point. So this chart has a lot of fire in it, as you can tell. Next, we'll look above those planets to the moon and Venus, which are sitting on top there in Capricorn and Earth sign. Moon gets 2 points, Venus gets 1. And then we also have Jupiter in Taurus on the other side. That's another point. And that is all for Earth. Then we go to the air sign, and we have Pluto down there in Libra. That's 1 point, and it doesn't look like there are any other air planets. But we have the ascendant in Gemini, and I take that into consideration. That's a very important part of the chart, and that's air. So it might just balance that lack of air just a tad. Then we're going to look at the final element, which is water. And as you can see, there's only one planet in Scorpio, fixed water sign, and that's Uranus. And that's an outer planet, so I gave 2 points, as I said, for Sun and the Moon. But knowing a little bit of astrology, you might know that personal planets are really important to us on a everyday level, whereas the outer planets could be more collective, more transpersonal. However, they still get a point here because we're counting all the planets. So we're just going around the chart, counting, and then writing down how many we have in each element. It's just as simple as that. That's all you need to do, right? That's done. So hopefully that was simple enough. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me in the comment section. I always respond to the comments. And I want you to just understand how this works, because then we're going to go now talk about how to bring the elements into ourselves. And I'm just going to give some examples. I had a really fun time putting these thoughts and examples together. You can always suggest anything that you think would be helpful if you have a way of bringing the elements into your lives. So we're going to look first at the element of earth. So we can think of earth, of course, being out in nature. One way I love connecting with the earth is just walking barefoot on the grass, just on earth, putting your feet on earth, spending time in nature, spending time with animals. That can be very grounding. Anything that helps to ground you. Meditation is a really nice way just to ground yourself, being in touch with your body. Yoga, touch, physical touch, and massage. Taurus rules the physical senses. So the physical sense of touch, smell, taste, and so aromatherapy. That's a really very Taurian, very Taurus. It's related to Taurus. Taurus rules aromatherapy, aroma, scent, and touch. So that's a beautiful combination. Maybe aromatherapy massage is an excellent way to connect with the element of earth. Smells, just walking in the garden, smelling flowers. Really getting in the smell and the colors. One of my favorite ways of connecting with the element of earth is eating really nutritious food, just really colorful food, and really enjoying it and taking in the smells and the taste, really enjoying the senses. And crystals, of course, especially grounding crystals, so like black tourmaline, smoky quartz, all crystals, of course, but I think especially those ones that are very grounding. Taking a bath is another nice way to ground. It's also, of course, related to the element of water and earth. You can even combine all the elements. You can have candles, so bringing the element of fire, have essential oils, and then water, and then you can put maybe just some seashells around. Then you can have all the elements there. Take deep breaths. So those are just some suggestions for the element of earth. And then the element of water. So really anything that connects you to the water itself, taking a bath, as we just said, going swimming, or of course in the ocean is amazing, but even in the swimming pool. I'm missing water in my chart, and I thought it was really interesting because all my life I've been having this need to go swimming. I always, ever since I was little, I loved water and I loved being in water, and I feel that it was my unconscious way of trying to bring that element to myself. Although you might have a lot of water in your chart and you might feel that you also connect very much with water. People that I know who have a lot of water in the chart, I've noticed that they don't tend to drink a lot of water, and they're not too fond of being in the ocean and water. And for me, I found that people who are lacking in water, they also need to drink a lot of water. And listening to water sounds, that's also a really great way if you can't be in water. Maybe getting one of those little water, those little things that have water pouring down so you hear the actual sounds of water in your place, in your living space. Or maybe having an aquarium if you're okay with that. The water sounds I was talking about, it's like a water fountain. That I love those. And I used to love aquariums too. Just my dad used to have one. Being just around fish, some people hate fish. I think it's so interesting to see what it is that we fear also, and then see how that connects to the elements in the chart. Some people fear birds, some people fear fish. So if that's connected with the element that you're missing or that you have too much of, sometimes the way to balance the chart is bringing in what we have too much of. So it also works the other way around. What if we are lacking water, we can bring in water, but if we have too much water, sometimes for some people, bringing in the water can help to also balance it. So it's another thing with water, of course, the element of water is all about the emotions. So I find that for me, also having a shortage of water in my chart, is being in touch with your emotions, learning how to really feel your emotions. For a lot of people, myself included, it was even hard to know and distinguish exactly which emotions I was feeling. It took me a while to really understand when I was feeling angry or when I was feeling anxious. So it's important for people with a lack of water to really be in touch with their emotions, really be okay with feeling their emotions. And a lot of times people who are short in water in their charts actually are super emotional. They just might not have tapped into their emotions themselves. And of course, everybody's different, and depending on where you are on your path, on your journey with self-discovery, everybody's different. Another great way to bring the element of water is watching a movie that actually initiates an emotional response. That's also a really great way. So shedding tears, that's a way of connecting with the element of water. A lot of times people block the crying, the impulse to cry, to shed the tears. That's so important. It's so important in emotional healing, as many of you already know. So really feeling your emotions, nurturing yourself. The element of water is about nurturing, self-care, comfort foods. Of course, you might be on a diet, so maybe healthy comfort foods, nurturing yourself and eating nurturing foods. Another way I love to connect with the element of water is through crystals again, and especially crystals linked to the element of water. So for example, aquamarine is a great example. Chrysocolla is another good one. Moonstone, any crystals that link to the moon and the element of water are really great. They're very cooling. Seashells, I have seashells all over my place, and I never knew why I was so attracted to seashells and the ocean until I found out that I have a lack of water in my chart, and that made a lot of sense. And then the next element is air. So air is it's an element that's objective and non-judgmental. And sometimes people who are lacking in the element of air tend to have a hard time detaching. So it's important for people who are lacking in air to take the space they need, the space to think before they have to make a decision or act, or just to actually physically have a space where they can be away from others and to retreat and spend time alone. Space becomes very important. And then the space to breathe, breathing deeply, bringing in fresh air. That's very important for air. Some people who are lacking in the element of air sometimes feel the need to even actually open up windows, have air circulating, movement of air, whether that's having a fan, fan in the room, on the ceiling, just having air, flowing air, taking deep breaths. Giving yourself the space, the actual physical space, internal space. Those are all really, really important. That reminds me of the artist, the famous Spanish artist, Salvador Dali, and his wife. They actually lived in two different homes, separated, and they both had very strong Uranus and Aquarius. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, and now I can't remember what I can't remember their charts, but I know that they both have a strong Uranus. I think Uranus at the ascendant or something. So that's interesting because Uranus is the planet that rules Aquarius, the fixed sign of air, and it's all about space and the freedom to have space, physical space, mental space. So anything, of course, that stimulates the mind, because the air is it corresponds to the mind, the element of air. So reading, learning a language, learning anything that stimulates the mind, engages the mind, even something simple as doing crossword puzzles or those IQ tests. Another really great way to connect with the element of air is to have an engaging conversation. Have an engaging conversation with a friend. That's a really great way. We can think of course, the Gemini in here. Gemini about learning or learning a language and all of that. That's all related to Gemini. And people who have a lack of air in their chart, they need space before taking action. They need space to think, they need to allow themselves time and space to think before deciding anything, before taking the action. I think that's the important message here with the element of air. And so finally, the element of fire. And for this one, I haven't thought of a lot of things, and maybe that's because I have a lot of fire in my chart. So for fire, it's important, if you're lacking fire, to be around the element of fire. So simple things like just lighting a candle, being around fire, sitting by the fireplace. That's like the typical association we have with the element of fire. And exercise. That's a great way to connect to the element of fire and to bring that into you. So movement, anything that gets the heart going. Leo rules the heart. Anything that gets you moving. Sagittarius rules the thighs. It's a sign of movement. So covering ground, walking and running and covering the ground, stimulating the heart, getting things going, sweating, beginning a sweat. The heart rate, exercise is really excellent. So we said the candle, exercise, sitting by the fireplace, and colors. Sitting right here behind me is one of my paintings with really strong colors. Surrounding yourself with strong colors is another way to connect with the element of fire. And this is interesting because I love fire. I'm really attracted to fire, and I'm really attracted to colors. And I have a lot of fire in my chart. So this, again, going back to what I said in the beginning, where if you are lacking in an element, it doesn't mean you are not strong in that element. And if you are having too much of that element, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be around that element. So if you have a lot of fire like me, this doesn't mean that you should just get away from fire. This just means that you're naturally going to be attracted to fire. However, having a lack of water, for me, it's important for me to learn how to feel my emotions, express my emotions, not overly express them, not compensate in another way. Maybe a lot of times what happens is you compensate by playing or exercising the part of you which has a lot of that element. So maybe instead of feeling my emotions, I might decide to go for a run or exercise just to get away from my emotions. And that way, it becomes unhealthy, because then I might overdo it. I might injure myself because I'm not in the moment. I'm not grounding. I'm not thinking about what I'm feeling. I'm not feeling what I'm feeling. See, I just said thinking about what I'm feeling because I tend to go more about analyzing the feelings rather than really feeling them. And that's something that I've been trying to work on with my own personal development journey. Okay, so that's it, everybody. I hope that this was helpful. I hope it was interesting, and I would love to hear what you think in the comment section. Make sure you let me know if you have any questions. And as always, I'm sending you lots of love and many blessings, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everyone.